Hello, everyone. Our religious heritage group presentation is on the Amish. And in my group, we have myself, Melvin Santos, Timothy Gonzalez, Aaliyah Osilia, Vanessa Acusa, and Charmaine Sanchez.
First, I'm going to give you guys a brief and concise history about the Amish. The Amish are descendants of a branch of Anabaptists during the Protestant Reformation and resided in Switzerland, Austria, Germany, France, and the Netherlands. Originally, a Catholic priest named Menno Simons wrote down the beliefs and practices of the Anabaptists and eventually founded the Mennonites. It was not until 1693 when Jacob Amon, the leader of the church at the time, broke away from the Mennonites and formed a more conservative group known as the Amish. The Amish are known to be quite conservative about the use of modern technology, with many of the Amish settlements not having any electricity and automobiles. It is estimated that there are over 250,000 Amish spread throughout 220 settlements in 21 states and one Canadian province. There are actually 4 major orders of the Amish. The first one is the Old Order Amish, the largest group of the 4 and what everyone calls the Amish. The second group is the ultra-conservative Swartzentuber and Andy Weaver Amish. They are known to be more conservative than the Old Order Amish and are restrictive with the use of technology. They shun those who have dropped out or committed a violation against their faith. The third group is the New Order Amish. They were formed in the 1960s and are known to be less conservative. The New Order Amish have a more liberal point of view when it comes to technology, but are quite restrictive regarding the use of alcohol and tobacco. Lastly, is the liberal beachy Amish, who are commonly known as the Mennonites. They maintain the values of the conservative Amish, but allow the use of electricity and automobiles.
Next, we'll be discussing the worldview of the Amish.
So the Amish believe that God has called them to a simple life of faith, discipline, dedication, and humility. They believe their religion should be practiced, not displayed, and translated into daily living. Their belief is that God has a personal and abiding interest in their lives, and families and communities is the force that holds them together in spite of the pressures of the outside world. The Amish refers to members of several ethno-religious Christian groups who choose to live separately from the modern world through manners of dress, language, family life, and selective use of technology. Amish practice their faith in the tradition of Anabaptism. In comparison to a Christian worldview, members could choose to be baptized and submit themselves to the order of the church. Amish have guiding principles called the Ordnung, which is based on specific biblical passages and used for passing on religious values and way of life from one generation to the next. In church services, Amish use the Bible for worship, scriptures, and hymns.
Let's talk about health disparities regarding the Amish. Most Amish live in poverty and are detached from modern healthcare. With that being said, they live a traditional, rural way of life, and it makes them less accepting of modernism. So the first health disparity of the Amish is regarding their oral health. A study was conducted in the state of Ohio, and which, for your information, is the most populated Amish location in the United States, and it describes oral health among Amish children and their medical conditions during visits to a mobile dental unit. Within the results, 216 charts were reviewed and only 66 or 33.2% of the children visited a dentist in the past year. About 1/4 or 27.8% of the children had never seen a dentist, and most were uninsured at a whopping 86.6%. And we're not even enrolled in Medicaid, which is a governmental social health care program for families and individuals with limited resources. When interviewing, the most frequent reason for not seeking oral care was because they could not afford the dental visit. When gathering data from the patient's charts, they found that Amish children had high levels of untreated tooth decay. This may be due to the fact that Amish are fatalistic and do not view preventative care as a priority, which was consistent with the studies as many Amish children showed oral care discrepancies. The second health disparity is regarding their religion and cultural beliefs. So the Amish result in many healthcare beliefs and practices and are significantly different from the dominant American culture. For example, the Amish are excluded from Social Security and health insurance coverage, have different perceptions of health and illness, and they do not practice birth control, and they often lack the preventative practices of immunizations and prenatal care. Only by understanding the religio-cultural belief system of this minority religious sect can nurse practitioners effectively meet the healthcare needs of their Amish patients.
Lastly, we'll be talking about Purnell's domains. The domains that we'll be discussing are family roles and organization, spirituality, and healthcare practice. For family roles and organization, this can include gender roles, priorities, and developmental tasks of children and adolescents, as well as roles of the aged and extended family members. As for spirituality, this can include religious practices and the use of prayer, behaviors that give meaning to life, and individual sources of strength. Lastly, for healthcare practice, this involves acute or preventative focuses of healthcare, traditional and biomedical beliefs, individual responsibilities for health, self-medicating practices, and views towards mental illness. There are many ways we can connect Purnell's domains to the lifestyle of the Amish. For family roles and organization, one of the core characteristics of the Amish is Gelassenheit, which means submission or yielding to higher authority. This means that they also follow traditional and well-defined gender roles. For example, husbands will assume the head of the household and other religious matters relating to the church. The wives will typically assume the tasks of housekeeping and motherhood, as well as share the responsibilities of household decision-making and child discipline. During healthcare practice, the Amish culture tends to incorporate folk, herbal, homeopathic, and biomedicine. The use of preventative medicine is prohibited, however, since the Amish believe it is against God's will. Because the biomedical healthcare system is widely episodic and crisis-oriented, if this fails, they will either visit an herb doctor, a chiropractor, or even what they call a powwow doctor, which is a practitioner known for folk healing art. When it comes to spirituality, it is known that the Amish practice their Anabaptism faith. Small church districts will hold their services led by a bishop every other Sunday, and they will also observe adult baptism and communion twice a year. Purnell's domains also widely relate to the nursing process, as it can be used by healthcare professionals as a guide for their assessment tools, planning strategies, and create more individualized interventions. This is a tool that all healthcare providers, not only nurses, can benefit from.
Here's how healthcare providers can use these 3 domains to be culturally sensitive. Looking at their family dynamics, they typically have a great support system which make up their immediate family, extended family, and the church, and they rely heavily on community care, which is why the Amish prefer home care over at an institution because it holds emotional appeal and familiarity. If an Amish patient were to be placed on hospice care, the culturally aware nurse should be involving family members in the plan of care and offer home care services. The next domain discussed is the spirituality of the Amish. Their Anabaptist Christian beliefs are central to them, which influence their views on health. The act of helping or visiting others that are sick is one of their health-focused spiritual practices. So to put this into perspective, if many family members or even church members were to come up to a healthcare provider to visit their loved one, the provider would be culturally sensitive by finding a way to accommodate the many visitors for the patients. And so this leads us to the final domain of healthcare practices. If given the choice for their plan of care, the Amish prefer to avoid modern medicine as they tend to distrust the American medical and pharmaceutical industry. They try to stick to natural remedies such as herbs, vitamins, and minerals because they believe modern medicine are too strong, have undesirable effects, and are too expensive. So the healthcare provider can be culturally sensitive of these practices in their care by first providing natural interventions prior to giving pharmaceuticals or performing any invasive procedure.
This concludes our Religious Heritage Group presentation on the Amish. Thanks for watching.